large and in charge. That is this car in a nutshell. It's the new Mazda CX-90, the big new SUV from the brand with 3 rows of seats, lots of tech and some pretty impressive engines. But there are some things I don't love about it. Stay tuned, I'll tell you about them in this review. G'day, I'm Matt. This channel's called The Right Car, and if you haven't already, please do hit like and subscribe because it helps a lot, and share this video with anyone who you think is looking for a large SUV, because they might want to check this one out. There are 3 different versions of the CX-90 available. Each of them comes with a choice of petrol or diesel. I'll give you all the details about the powertrains shortly, but first, let's consider what you get for your money in each of the different variants of this car. So the entry-level version is called the Touring. It comes with 19-inch alloy wheels. It also comes with LED lighting. Inside, you've got leather trim, electric front seat adjustment, heated front seats, and also 3-zone climate control, which is nice to see. Plus, there's a small 10.25-inch media screen, and it's not a touch screen, but you still get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And if you step up to this one here, which is the GT grade, it costs you about $10,000 more. You get 21-inch wheels, a panoramic sunroof. You also get heated rear seats in this car, second row seats at least, and a heated steering wheel too, plus a bigger touchscreen media system. Yeah, a touchscreen, unlike the entry-level version. And then at the top of the range, it's the Azami model, which is more than $90,000, so it's not a cheap SUV, but it does look the part. It's got black look 21-inch wheels, so separates it from the other models in the range. It also gets Napa leather interior, and there's a choice of a few different interior packages as well. So you can choose the SP pack, which comes with a tan leather finish and some other different fabrics on the inside, or the Takumi package, which looks amazing. It's got Japanese inspired stitching and stuff like that, and looks great. It comes with pure white Napa leather trim as well. So there's a lot to like when it comes to how much you're paying for this car. Well, what about the competitors? There aren't that many large SUVs from mainstream brands that offer the same sort of stuff that this car does, but there are some alternatives that I reckon you should be checking out. The first one, the Hyundai Palisade. Now it comes with a V6 petrol engine or diesel with all-wheel drive, and I reckon it's a pretty good option for people who are looking for a big SUV with a few luxurious touches, maybe not as many luxury touches as this car, but it also offers lower pricing, and that might matter to you. Hit my review link at the top of the screen there or in the description, and you'll be able to check out my detailed review of the Palisade. I was pretty impressed by it, but I'd choose the diesel if I was buying that car. Another big vehicle that you might want to check out if practicality is your priority, the Kia Carnival. Hit the link up there and you'll be able to check out my review of that SUV-like people mover. It's pretty good. I reckon it offers a lot of technology and a lot of really smart stuff on the inside, but you have to pay for one of the better versions if you want the best Carnival that you can get. The Platinum one has a lot of bells and whistles, and it's still thousands and thousands of dollars cheaper than this. Funnily enough, the other vehicle that I reckon you should be checking out if you're looking at something like this is also a South Korean brand, Genesis, the Genesis GV80 in particular. It's a large SUV with 3 rows of seats. It also comes with the choice of some really good petrol engines or a straight 6 diesel, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So if you want diesel, you want all-wheel drive, you want SUV, 3 rows of seats, large, luxury, lots of features, maybe the Genesis GV80 will be the right car for you. This is the biggest Mazda passenger car ever. It's 5.1 meters long, so this is a big vehicle. It also looks substantial. It has an amazing stance to it in my mind, and it's also quite broad. So just keep in mind, if you have a small garage, or maybe you live somewhere urban and you encounter small car parks a lot, it's not going to be right for you, I don't think. But what might make it right for you, if you're looking for a big practical family SUV, is the boot. Let's have a look. One nice thing to see, all versions come with an electric tailgate in the CX-90 range, which is really good to see. Also good to see is the amount of space in here. There's plenty of room behind the 3rd row. When you have these seats up, you'll see the figure on your screen now, that's a lot of space. And it means that you could easily fit a pram or some shopping bags or school bags or whatever you need to fit in here. I mean, you're not going to fit a week's worth of luggage for a holiday or anything, but it is going to be enough for most people's needs. All right, so folding down the back seats is pretty simple. It's just pull these tabs and fold them forward. Weirdly, they've gone to tabs. I think on the CX-9 they were levers, and I think the levers were better. Now, when it comes to 5-seat layout, you'll see the figure on your screen now for the boot space. It's huge. There's plenty of room back here, and it's easily going to be big enough. If you're going to use this car as a 5-seater primarily, then this is going to be heaps of space for you. Another couple of nice things to note, there's a power point in every single version of this car, and you also get a 12 volt in the back too. So you can be pretty sure that you'll be able to keep things charged up and keep everyone happy, hopefully. Does it feel like a big step forward from the CX-9? Yes, it does. It feels a lot more luxurious than a CX-9 in here. Does it feel like a luxury SUV? Not so sure. It does have some luxurious elements to the cabin, but there are some elements which I don't love. Let me talk about the things I do like first. Okay, so you've got this lovely leather trim on the seats. The seats are quite big, so if you're a big person, you're going to find them pretty comfy. If you're not, you might find them a bit too flat, but there's also nice soft padded sections where your elbows sit on the doors and here in the center console. This console opens up both ways, so it's also got a couple of USB-C ports in there. It's quite shallow though, so it's not the most amazing when it comes to storage. I also really like this material finish across the dashboard. Reminds me, I think I said in my CX-60 review, that it's like early 2000s Volvo leather. And I like that. It's not leather, I don't think. I think it's like just a leatherette, but it looks nice and it adds something to the cabin. And obviously if you choose one of the high-spec versions with the optional packages, then you get a different trim across there as well. And that just adds some, I guess, individuality to each of the different grades that you can get. So I like that. I also really like that you've got buttons. I love buttons. You've got your temperature controls, you've got your seat heating buttons, your steering wheel heat button, fan control button. All of that makes living with a car so much easier than some of the other cars out there now that you have to do things through a screen and touch a screen to adjust those elements. So thank you, Mazda, for keeping that up. Now, speaking of touchscreen stuff, in my CX-60 review, I made a mistake. You can have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto on as a touchscreen while you are driving, but only if you choose one of the versions that has the bigger 12.3-inch screen. So you got to buy a GT or an Azami if you want to be able to use Apple CarPlay like you are supposed to use it, like it's a mirror of your phone. So that's something nice to note. If you don't buy the high-spec versions, or if you just don't care about touchscreen, there's a rotary dial here with some fast keys for you to jump between menus on the screen as well, which does make it pretty nice to live with. And I like that there's a volume knob as well down here. So that's all good to see. One thing I will say, in the entry-level version, you also get a smaller digital element to the driver instrument cluster. It doesn't feel as special in that base model car, and for the money that's being asked, I think it's a little bit disappointing that they don't have a fully digital screen in that entry-level model. But you'll make up your own mind about whether you think it's good value or not. All right, let's check out the second row. It is a big SUV and it feels big in the second row. So if you have a growing family, it could be the right car for you, because look at this. This seat is set for me at 182 centimeters or 6 foot. And I've got lots of foot room and lots of knee room. I've even got a fair amount of headroom, even with this panoramic glass roof as well. So it is a roomy backseat experience. There is a small little transmission tunnel intrusion down here between the seats, but it's hardly anything to worry about. You will fit 3 adults across the back. And if you have kids, just keep in mind that you've got ISOFIX points in the window seats and 3 top tether points here. Plus there's another 2 top tether points in the third row as well. So there's plenty of usability options. If you do have youngsters, that's nice to see. So let's talk about some of the storage elements in this second row. You've got a pair of mat pockets on the seats. You've got bottle holders in the doors. Got a flip down armrest here with cup holders, which is also nice to see. And for the amenities, yeah, pretty good, I have to say. So you've got directional air vents down here. You've got climate control down there as well. This spec gets those rear outboard heated seats, which is really nice to see. And all grades come with these sun blinds, which just add a family-friendly element to this car, which it didn't have in the CX-9. And not all SUVs at this kind of price point have those fitted across all the variants available as well. Usually it's reserved for one of the high-spec models. I also like that you get really good lighting in here next to these grab handles. So that means that if you are loading a kid in or out at night, you'll be able to see what you're doing. Or if you're just doing stuff in the back seat, you'll be able to see what you're doing, which is nice to know. All right, now speaking of the very back seat, let's jump in there. Rightio. Should have also mentioned that you can slide these seats forwards and backwards to allow those in the back row more space if you need to. And the smaller portion of this, I guess, access zone to the third row is actually on the driver's side, which I find can be a little bit annoying, especially if you are, trying to let people into the back row and you're parked parallel on a road. Then it might mean that you have to get people around this side to get into the back, which isn't as safe as if it was on that side where, I don't know, you might want to actually get in from the curb side, for instance. Anyway, let me just push this forward and jump in the back and see what it's like. So what's the space like in the back for a human who's my size? Well, I'm not a small human, so it's actually pretty good, to be honest. The biggest issue I have is foot room. I have size 12 feet, so they're pretty big, but they do tuck in under the seat in front. We've got this seat forward so you can just sort of see how much space I've got. But this seat is set for someone who could sit in front of me, and there's still enough room in here for me in terms of knee room, lots of headroom too. So if you have big kids or you have a growing family, then it might be a really good fit for your needs. What I'll also mention is that you do get some pretty nice amenities in here. Unlike in the CX-9, you now get rear air vents, which is nice to see. They're down here, so they're quite low, but they are at least here, which is good to see. And in this grade, at least, you also get a pair of USB-C ports, a couple of cup holders on the edges, on the wheel arches as well. So yeah, in terms of accommodation, it's pretty good. And the view's not too bad out from here either. So you've got pretty big glass and a decent look over the top of the seats in front of you too. The big difference with the CX-90 compared to the CX-9, which it essentially replaces, is that it is built on a new architecture, and that allows it to have a bunch of different technology. So it's got 48 volt mild hybrid tech in every single version of this car. Plus it's built on a new architecture, which is a rear biased all-wheel drive system. So all versions are all-wheel drive. All of them come with an 8-speed automatic as standard as well, which is integrated into that 48 volt mild hybrid system. Okay, so the two engine options that you have available to you are the G50E, which is the petrol version. G is for gasoline, in case you're wondering. And you'll see the outputs on your screen now for that one. Now that is a fair amount of power and torque. In fact, it's the most powerful Mazda ever in terms of the kilowatts. So it has heaps of grunt, but you have to work it to get that grunt out of it. I'll tell you more about that in the driving section. And then there's the D50E diesel model. Both of the models are 3.3 litre straight 6 engines, but the diesel one has less power but more torque. So it makes for a more effortless drive experience. But you can see the figures on your screen. Yeah, there's a fair amount of grunt here. Oh, and there's also going to be a plug-in hybrid version coming. It won't be here till the end of 2024, and it promises to offer pretty competitive fuel consumption, but let's hope that they've improved some of the drivability aspects of it compared to the CX-60. If you want to see my review of the plug-in hybrid of that, check it out, hit the link up there and you'll be able to see it. I wasn't that impressed. Hopefully it's better in this car. Okay, so the big plus for this car is the fact that it's got straight 6 engines. So the petrol one, which I'm in right now, is pretty good. It's surprisingly loud. I didn't expect it to be as loud or louder than the diesel, but it is. But it is also really punchy, especially if you flick the little MI drive button and put it into sport mode. You will notice that it kicks back and it wants to go. So yeah, it goes, and it's also really quick. Like, this is the most powerful engine in any Mazda ever in terms of kilowatt outputs. Just put it back into normal mode. And it does really have a fair bit of zest to it. Now it's paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission, which does mostly a pretty good job. And then there's that diesel engine, which I think is the pick of the range. It's a really lovely thing. It offers great linearity, heaps of power and torque, and it feels like a better fit for this car in my opinion, because there's less sort of lagginess at lower speeds. You just sort of push away without as much fuss, whereas in the petrol you can get a little bit of lag before it starts to find its sweet spot above 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 RPM. However, while the diesel does make sense in terms of the driving experience, it might not make sense for you because the diesel has the lower towing capacity of the two, which is really surprising. It also has more frequent servicing intervals. I'll tell you about that in a sec, but yeah, it might not be a better vehicle to live with, just might be a better vehicle to drive. It's also got regenerative braking to feed back energy or potentially lost energy back into the 48 volt mild hybrid system. So the brake pedal feel isn't quite as natural as some other cars, and it can feel like it's going to struggle to pull up when you do come into a sharp corner or something like that. Because it has a 48 volt mild hybrid system, it can at times cut the engine off, so you'll notice that the rev needle drops to 0 and it'll just be coasting along, and it'll also cut the engine a little bit earlier than you might expect in start-stop traffic. So it does take a little bit of getting used to. You get a little bit of electrical assistance as well to push you away at times. So it's a pretty decent system, but it's certainly not quite as refined as some other hybrid systems, and don't think of it as a proper full hybrid because it's really not. If you drive in the countryside, as I am today on this launch event, you just feel lots and lots of the little imperfections in the road surface below. It sort of recovers pretty well over a big bump. If you're just tooling around town and you're on smooth surfaces, it seems to be okay, but Mazdas do have that tendency. They are designed more for an enthusiastic customer who might actually appreciate a firm ride because it does offer some handling benefits, and that's the case here too. It does handle pretty good for a big bus, but it's also trying to be a luxury SUV or a luxurious SUV, and it could be a bit squishier in terms of the ride comfort. So I did drive the entry-level version with the 19-inch wheel and tyre package. It does ride a little bit better. The steering, it does have this tendency to have quite heavy weighting on center, especially at lower speeds, where if you go a bit faster and you start to apply steering lock in a corner, it loses some of its feel and it feels just a little bit vague, and it's hard to judge what response you're going to get. It does move around a bit in corners as well. There's a bit of body roll to contend with because it is so large. Obviously, it's a family SUV, so if you're expecting MX-5 dynamics, you're probably buying the wrong car if you're looking at a CX-90, but hey, maybe just buy yourself a CX-5 and an MX-5 and you'll be happy. Okay, visibility from the driver's seat, not too bad, but not amazing. These pillars are quite thick. You've got a non-convex mirror on the driver's side, which can make merging or changing lanes or whatever a little bit difficult. And also, unlike some of the other larger SUVs out there, say Land Rover Defender, Nissan Pathfinder and Nissan Patrol, for instance, it doesn't have a digital mirror system. So those cars have a little camera on top of the car that can feed through a live image to the mirror at the flick of a switch. And that's really good if you have a full car and all the seats are full, or even if you just have all the seats up, because if that's the case, you can't actually see that much out through the rear window in this car. So yeah, a few little things that could be better. All told, this car does have a lot of promising attributes and positive elements, but also quite a few elements that maybe feel just a little bit underdone for the price that's being asked and the intent of this vehicle and the intent of Mazda Australia to try and price it as a luxury SUV. Yeah, there's some bits that could be better. All right, let's talk about fuel consumption. Rightio, so if you're buying a diesel version, the D50E version of this SUV, you will see the official combined cycle fuel consumption figure on your screen now. That is exceptional. If you can achieve it, wow, that is amazing for a vehicle this big, this heavy, with this much practicality. Yeah, tremendous. However, on this launch drive, which has been a lot of country driving, not the sort of stuff I usually do with a car, I saw 6.9 litres per 100 Ks over a mix of driving. So that's obviously a little bit higher than the official number, but not worlds apart. And then when it comes to the petrol model, well, as you would expect, it has higher fuel consumption, at least on the combined cycle official number. You'll see that on your screen now. And you guessed it, on this Hunter Valley experience that we've been having in the CX-90. I saw a little bit higher. You'll see the figure on your screen now. So that's what you might be able to achieve if you do a lot of country driving. But if you drive urban a lot, maybe you'll see higher. It really depends how much you're calling into action that 48-volt mild hybrid system. At the time I'm filming this, there is no ANCAP or Euro NCAP safety rating for the CX-90, so hopefully there will be at some point, but it does have all the tech that you would expect for it to achieve the maximum rating, including autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist and junction detection. There's lane keeping assistance, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, a front cross traffic alert system as well. So if you're pulling out of a driveway and you can't see either way, then it can tell you if there's something coming, which is really good technology. Also really good to see is that all models come with a surround view camera system and front and rear parking sensors as standard too. So it makes it a lot easier to see out of this car when you are trying to park it. And when it comes to the airbag coverage, there are 10, including curtain airbags that extend all the way to the back row, and front side and front knee and front center. There's a bunch of airbags in here. It's 10. That's a lot. Mazda offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty and 5 years of roadside assist with every model that it sells, which is nice to see. However, let's talk about servicing, because there are some things that we need to address with this car. The petrol versions have 12-month 15,000 kilometre intervals, and the diesel versions have shorter intervals, 12 months and 10,000 Ks, which is strange because, you know, if you're going to buy a diesel, you're more likely to live in a regional area. You might be further away from your dealership, so it could be a real pain in the neck if you are considering this car and you live out in the bush. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that they're not very affordable to service. The service cost, the average cost, you'll see that on your screen now for both the petrol and the diesel models. And yeah, for every 15,000 Ks or every 10,000 Ks in the case of the diesel, yeah, that's a lot of money to keep in mind. Tell me what you think in the comments section below. Would it stop you from buying one of these cars if you were looking at the diesel one in particular? Look, I think there's a lot to like about the Mazda CX-90. The diesel and petrol engines in this car are great. There's a lot of luxury on offer, heaps of technology, and hey, lots of practicality too. But I'm not so sure about whether it is a truly luxury SUV experience or just a really, really nice mainstream SUV. I don't know if that matters though. Tell me what you think in the comments section below. Would you choose a CX-90 over one of those luxury branded models that I've mentioned? Or would you just say, hey, it's a lovely car. I don't care what brand it has on it. Hit me up in the comments, and if you haven't already, please do hit like and subscribe and ring the bell to keep up to date with all of my reviews. See you in the next one.